and
I'm recording this.
told her a little bit about me.
Because
Excuse
when
me?
the people will come, then I will not record. If more people will come, then I will just stop recording, because there are a few rules. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm recording the session. I'm just saying this.
Okay. But yeah, just introduced myself to Dr. Khan through Facebook Messenger. And she seemed to be so fascinated about my story that she wanted me to us to be a part of her global podcast. So here we are.
And
I would love.
yeah.
Are you a mom of autism?
I'm a mother. My son is Alexander Myers. He is 28. He'll be 29 in 2 weeks. He is medically declared nonverbal. However, he does speak by his choice, if there's a need to be met. He's not on any psychotropic meds, nor has he ever been. I do everything and have done everything from a holistic approach. My role in his life has been to fight a system here in Arkansas and the US. From a political basis, the public school system failed my son, as well as our local government. There's no one here doing what I'm doing as far as a parent. Sometimes it may be due to possible retaliation, but most of the time people are just reluctant to step up, either out of shyness or embarrassment, is what I found. And a lot of times people here in the South, if you don't comply to their need of you, then they don't support you.
I call that the power of influence, Miss Veronica.
Yeah. I mean, it's neither here nor there for me. I mean, Alexander is my child, and I'm willing to do whatever I can by any means necessary to ensure that he is not a statistic and that he is an exception to the rule. So,
Miss Veronica, do you work also? Are you a working mom, or do you just stay home with your son and help support him? How does that go for you on a day-to-day basis?
I chose to give up my career for my child.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the story. So Veronica, my name is Cricket Barrientos. I'm the founder of an organization called Sounds of Autism well, I was going to say we're near Arizona. I met Mr. Mark at an event where a girl, I think she was 15 at the time, was lured out of her home by an online gaming predator that talked her out of her home. She brought her 2 electronic devices with her, no charging cords, and she climbed a 6-foot fence and got into an Uber, and that's the last they knew. She's been missing for almost 3 years, and Marcus found out about this and actually flew into Arizona to attend the same event that I was attending. The Anti-Predatorial, which is the detective agency that also supports finding this girl, we also met him as well. His name is Trent Steele, and he's with something called Anti-Predatorial out of Miami, Florida. So this girl is believed to be sex trafficked through a cartel, and they have not found her. But this is the story that I've heard multiple times. Second individual was actually 22, and he was found floating in a river, decapitated. So I share this story with you because I learned, just like you, I was in business for multiple years. I ran restaurants for over 30 years between Chicago and Arizona. And that's really what gave me my confidence to start a nonprofit. But you were absolutely right. The majority of the people that see us coming, they get very nervous because we are actually doing something here with our hands on down the emotions, right? And my job was to keep people motivated to keep this and to be hands-on. So we have 16 Pro, the end of life, and it's all educational curriculum, awareness. People like yourselves, like this, would go on our podcast. We have a digital library so people can change the language to fit their need. Certificate. And I know the educational system, many of them want to change it. So it is a very political platform. And I have learned that I will not take government funding to support what I'm doing, because I don't think that they have our best interest at this point. I think that will change with people like yourself and Marcus and Dr. Khan. But right now, people want us to go away, to be honest with you. They want us to go away because we're actually holding them accountable to doing their job.
And if I might, I want to speak on when you talked about these certificates. I'm not necessarily talk in a linear perspective. I kind of go back and forth from a non-linear perspective, just on flashbacks and things of that nature, and recalling some things. But I know when my son was in school, in the public school system, that was one of the criterion, was the certificate of completion, as you say. And with now don't get me wrong, Alexander cannot live independently. He will never be able to have his own home. That was my goal, of course, because my thought always was, even when he was initially diagnosed at the age of 2, is what's going to happen to my son when I die. Because there was no family that I could trust. There was no family support, nobody that I could call a friend that I could confide in and trust to take care of my son when I close my eyes for the last time. With that being said, when he got to high school at 9th through 12th grade, actually, I physically went to school with him every day until he graduated high school. And I was certain that he was not going to receive a certificate of completion. And the reason why, even though I know beyond my heart of hearts that he did not meet the criterion for his diploma due to the inconsistencies of the school system and their inability to follow the IEP and their unwillingness to comply to the legal policies and laws that governed Alexander to have a free and appropriate public education in his least restrictive environment. But I was certain that he was not going to receive a certificate of completion due to the fact that if there was a neurological change within him at some point, that he would want to learn a trade, or he would want to further and advance his education past high school, he would not have been able to do it, or he would not be able to do it with a certificate of completion, which is why I continue to advocate for his high school diploma. And he did get it. He was able to walk across the stage and get his diploma on his own with no physical assistance. I had local media present to video him walking across the stage. It was a very proud moment. There was like a 3-hour ceremony that I stood down on the floor with his class just to make sure that he was okay and that he knew I was around in case he needed me for that security blanket. But he did quite well. Media, like I said, recorded him. Then a couple years later, they came back and did a follow-up story of what the system in Arkansas is not doing, that they should be doing for him as an adult now. And I think that that's what kind of jump-started me into the politics of this, because I have learned that here in Arkansas, and I can only speak for Arkansas because that's where I resided most of my life. But I have learned very quickly that Arkansas is an institutionalized state that is what they believe in, the political backing, the private investors and things of that nature. They support nursing homes, mental institutions, the high school to prison pipeline, and human developmental centers. And so inclusive community settings are not a priority on our governors or our governorship priority list. So that's where we get a lot of the issues. And what I try to tell my parents and advocates and self-advocates as well, when you fight this particular fight, you have to understand that your governor controls how the funds are trickulated down to its people and to its agencies and to its organizations. And money and politics go hand in hand. And it's sad to say, but it's true. And Arkansas is one of those good old boy states. You wash my back, I'll wash yours. And I've learned even with the nursing home situation, just give you a brief synopsis of that. I've tapped into that as well because I've had to pick up guardianship responsibility for my estranged father as well. And father was an alcoholic, abusive, drug, substance abuse, and things of that nature. And at 71, he encountered one of many physical assaults against him in a drunken stupor and suffered a massive left brain stroke behind that. And I got the phone call, and of course, not that I thought I would ever be taking care of any one of my narcissistic parents, but I did expedite guardianship responsibility of him just to make sure that although I had lots of resentment throughout the years, I'm 52, but I've had a lot of resentment throughout the years because I felt like he abandoned me as a child to a woman that told me to my face at 8 years old that she didn't want me. And if she would have had my brother first, she never would have had me. So to take on this feat of my father, and then knowing that prior to when Alexander was younger, when he was a child, this same father would make fun of my son and take personal, take jabs at his mental capacity and things of that nature. So it's like, all of what I've had to learn on my own because the system wouldn't tell me, the system wouldn't show me, their goal is for you not to know, and that for you to give up and turn your child over to them, to the state, because that way they can bill, I've learned, up to $1 million per individual every year for insurance reimbursement for the rest of their lives until they die. And with me choosing to maintain Alexander at home, they don't get to bill that $1 million without being held accountable for it from a parent like me. But I have my son on one end and I have my estranged father on the other end at the nursing home. So I'm also advocate for nursing home residents as well, just to make sure that I cover both ends of the spectrum. Despite my dad and the childhood trauma I deal with, I'm good, but some of that childhood trauma does kind of seep back in on the forefront. But I was saying all that to say at the end of any day, as far as my father is concerned, I felt like he even deserves peace of mind. So I just took on that. I don't go see him every day because I didn't go see him every day when he was at the rise. However, I have a strong rapport with the administration of the nursing home. Had to go through some battles to get there, but they do understand my role as an advocate and as his daughter. But when I go to the nursing home, I'm an advocate. I'm not his daughter. I wear a name badge for my advocacy efforts, and I'm there totally about business and protocol.
Wow.
So, I just recently went back to school and got my bachelor's. It took me 15 years to go back to get my bachelor's. So I finally got it in December of last year, and the university presented me with an award for autism advocacy efforts here in Arkansas, which this is like 30 years in the making, and university has only known me a year, presents me with this award on their platform. And then they did a story about me on their website. So I decided to go ahead and ride that momentum and immediately went into the graduate school program under my discipline. And they're allowing me to channel my master's courses around my advocacy efforts and what I do as far as my research
Good for
papers and things of
you.
that nature.
Are you a nonprofit or are you just an advocate?
No, I do have a nonprofit. It's Alexander Secret Incorporated. I'm also working on a podcast. I'm hoping to be up and running September 1. With that, my website went live last year in October. Just recently got nominated and selected with the National Council of Independent Living out of Washington, D.C. So Zoom on the 26th.
Good job. Good job.
And I'm working on a book. I'm working on my memoir. I'm working on my memoir about my about raising Alexander is the title, and it's about our role in raising an adult with autism in Arkansas. So I got a few irons in the fire.
Where's Alexander? He will come. You will see that.
He'll be here. He's in the other room. He'll be here. Alexander.
The moment he hears my voice, he will always come. You have seen his video, maybe. I think you have seen his video. I will just tag you in these videos. I will show you that link. He always come actually. And he always mark his attendance in the support group.
Hey, I'm Cricket. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Look at the camera.
Hey, Alexander. How are you?
Yeah.
Hi, rallies.
He wants to go to rallies.
Yes.
Then-
Good. And?
Then
And where else you want to go?
That's fine.
That's fine.
Okay. Alexander, did you miss me last weekend?
Veronica, what is his
He's
favorite?
gone.
But if he likes going to nice restaurants, ordering cuisine. I mean, I've always I've never not included him in society. So wherever I go, he goes. If he's not welcome, I'm not welcome. So, but in saying that, I do make it a point to build a rapport everywhere I go and build relationships, because one of my big advocacy efforts is about inclusive communities, whether it's going to the park or whether it's going out to eat inside of a restaurant, because I think they have a right. Anyone with a special need, whether it's neurological or mental or stroke recovery, everyone deserves to have a right to be included in society as a whole. When I was raising Alexander as a child, one of his favorite places to go to at the time was Walmart. And so there was no way that Walmart was going to create a Walmart specifically for parents that have children. So Walmart had the 3 Walmarts we would go to, they had to get on board and understanding Alexander.
Well, I can share with you that recently Target reached out to us, and the distribution center is supporting what we're doing. And I think this is something that they're really pushing. So I share that with you because if you have a Target around you, please use that as a way to get in the door there for you to say.
We have one like right down the road. We're just literally 2 minutes away that we go to sometimes. So that's good to know.
Veronica, so Sounds of Autism, we support survival skill training, and we work with clients because they're brainwashed when it comes to leadership. So we're working with them, and we create resource lists and safe embedded solutions for families through those programs. We call it Boots on the Ground. And then we support families and community, with that. But we also work with law enforcement, and we work with educational leaders to create educational curriculum that can be brought into the school systems to educate safety, life, job, and workforce developments, independent living solutions. Phase 2 for us is where we kind of incorporated Marcus. We have a country music artist that has an autistic daughter and wrote a song called Raise Your Hands for ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder, and he will be breaking statewide records with his song, with dancing, the country, version of his song. And then he's also going to be doing a Guinness Book of World Records. He is phase 2 for us, which is compassion and empathy. So Marcus is going to come out for our walk in November, and we'll be introducing Marcus and Bobby Joe Bow Band and all those kind of people. But phase 3 and 4 is workforce development training solutions, where I'll be teaching kids all over the world virtually how to sustain jobs, even if they're never going to work a job, just teaching them boundary setting and coping methods, and working at home with mom to provide support, when she's needing help. So we have over 88,000 people on a waiting list for long-term housing here in Arizona, and 90% of the population, even if they have a college degree, cannot sustain jobs here. Part of that's the way the system is set up, as you said, and part of that is just the coping and the issues that they struggle with anxiety and stress triggers. So with that, my husband and I have been working on solutions. My husband is a 14-year police officer and sees the negatives of what happens to this population when they don't have parents like ourselves or a doctor like Dr. Khan. And so we use a lot of that example for our training solutions, but independently, it's styles as a team, and I call them survival teams. So my son and his best friend and 2 other like-minded individuals work together to learn how to cook, navigate transportation, do independent living. I do something like my restaurant, where they have to do a checklist every day to make sure something didn't break, or that they have a leak, or this is a potential fire hazard. We're teaching them all those kind of things, so that when they live together, maybe one individual is not capable of doing all of those things, but together all 4 of them are capable of doing that. And we would never put them in harm's way. And then we put them into a rental situation, but instead of a rental situation by somebody that's renting the home that doesn't understand this population, we're finding investors, families that are investing in a long-term solution where this team could stay there, pay rent through Social Security or the Article 9 funds that come in. And with that money, they're able to afford this idea and be able to give them the most typical life, but they're also handing this individual over to this new family dynamic that we've created. And then the parents can actually retire, right? So we have a lot of families that have this issue and won't get their child. They don't, because they're Christian values, they won't lie about their child to the government to say that my child is not capable of doing this or that. And a lot of times you have to embellish a little bit. Your child's worst day is every day, even if it's not, because that's the only way you get funding for the child. And so with that, our families are not always getting qualified. And so mom and dad financially have exhausted resources and financial resources. So invest that money, plan for their child's funeral ahead of time, all the things that they would want for their child. So when they're,
I have there has been, my son votes. He is a voter, and how he votes is those who interact with him, those who get him but give him a t-shirt. So with that being said, our most recent here this young man named to introduce him prior to the fit the description. With the mental illness or with the autism, to take it a step further, if I'm not around, he will endure some type of physical mistreatment or, God forbid, be shot and killed. So this guy, Mr. Jones, he met my son, him and his wife both came back in, met my son. After I got to talking, they wanted to know, oh, can we meet Alexander? I'm like, okay, yes, he's inside waiting for me. I sat on the sidewalk for about 10 minutes talking about my situation. And so we go back inside. They meet my son. They both take a picture with Alexander. And long story short, Will Jones, who he won the elections, we sworn in January. He also told me that particular day that whether he won or not, he wanted to work with me to ensure, because my goal is to make sure that those training courses for law enforcement and first responders he's won the election. And we've talked about further meeting to kind of get a plan together of how we can get this to be a mandate in training, even as early as criminal justice bachelor's degrees. You know what I'm saying? To kind of bring attention to the fact that, you know, the injustice that we face already just as minorities, but when you have another stigma on your back, which is a bullseye with a mental illness or developmental delay, I'm in fear. I'm in fear anytime my son is not with me, because I know I can protect him on more levels than anybody else can. And even with waiver staff, personal, what they call them, direct support staffing, they're not going to protect Alexander of those problems because there's not the appropriated training for those direct support professionals that are going to be working directly with your child. And I fight for that too. It's like, look, I want someone in here that's trained. I want them to understand what the politics of this is, because they need to know when they're out with my child, they need to understand the circumstances. Now, I am thankful that the team, a close team that I created as far as the rapport building, they know, it's about 3 or 4 of us, but they know if they see my son without me, they know to go up and meet and greet the person that he's with, find out who they are, explain who they are to them, and to come to my block. So even within a 5-block radius of our home, there is someone within the block from a political perspective, because I'm involved in a couple of political women's groups as well. But there are within a 5-block radius at least 5 people in my neighborhood that if my son was to wander from his front yard and they saw him, they would know to greet him and where to bring him back to, or to at least keep a hold of him until they called me to get me to him.
I love that.
So
I think that you have to train everybody. I always say if there's a gap in the bridge, you have to find a way to overcome that, right? And so I love what you're doing. It's very similar. I mean, what I think is crazy is when I meet people all over the world that all talk the same language about what's broken, what needs to be fixed, and all of those things. And you're right, there's a lot of people that won't step up to that position, whether it's they don't want to talk about it, or they don't know what to say or how to lead.
I saw who this revolutionary leader was. I think it was Thomas Paine. And it said, if you're afraid to offend, that you can't be truthful. So I'm one that, good, bad, or indifferent, I am going to speak my truth. I will stand up for anyone that is of the vulnerable. And that's probably one of my weaknesses. I take friendship very seriously. I take what I do as an advocate very seriously. Anyone that's in my immediate circle, I'm offended if they're offended. So if someone tries to take advantage of a Dr. Khan or Marcus, you know, that's part of my family now. And I try, and I'm sure they would do the same for myself and Alexander as well. but people like us are few and far between, and it's very sad because what we're fighting for is not going to happen even in, and and just sometimes when I'm in my room thinking, I just start breaking out into tears because I've been doing this, like I said, nearly 30 years. And even Alexander has made a statement that there has been no change, and he's nonverbal. So he doesn't even want to go back to the state capitol for any political event. And in his words, when I asked him why, he said no change.
Yeah.
So I don't force him to, if he knows his voice means something, so I don't force him to go to the Capitol anymore, or any of the legislative committee hearings that I go to, because I like to be privy on what laws are being made or what amendments are going to be made to changes. But at this leg of the race, the reason why I'm starting the podcast, and the reason why I decided to advance my education, and I'm also working on a business plan, hopefully for adults with autism, a housing project for adults with autism when they come out of high school. So with that being said, at this leg of the race for us, I'm just taking Alexander's handoff of the baton and using this position now to disclose information that a lot of people either don't know, politics, and then and sometimes too, it's not just that. I mean, even in the public school system, what my son was faced with, no matter how many times I quoted the IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disability Education Act, no matter how many times I was able to draw attention to different articles about my son's rights to a free and appropriate public education in his least restrictive environment, you always had these individuals, they just didn't want to do their job because they would have to, prove the skills, show the skills. If you are a special education teacher, if you are a community-based instructor, this should be second nature to you, what I'm talking about. But I had to, knowing that I had a lot of resistance within the public school system, I had to do what I could for Alexander in my home, in my home, and then in the community, because the public school system wouldn't do it. And when we talk about employment, I set up a perfect situation where Alexander was volunteering at the local hospital. Last 3 years of high school, from 10th to 12th grade, I was able to get them to afford him credits for that volunteer work so that he could apply it towards his graduation credits. In doing that, I had a perfect setup for the Department of Human Services and the Little Rock Public School System to work with St. Vincent's Infirmary, which is our local hospital that is just less than 5 minutes away from my home, to take Alexander's volunteer work and transition that to a paid job, even if he only got paid for 1 day a week. And no one with the waiver services program, with the DHA, were with me in unison to do this. And that's when I learned that they want me to give up and turn him over to the state so they can put him in an institution or HDC. So I don't know. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, to the best of my ability. But there's a lot of.
Should we join this meeting again? If the meetings end, then we will join this meeting again, okay? And I would like to say, you people are talking about so many things, and in our Pakistan, there is nothing that I could talk about that. Like you're talking about, that police should do that. Police should do. In over here, like you just said, a parent report to me, and she said that I was sitting there and the therapist slapped the child because the child was not able to produce one sound. The child was he had a suppression of cochlear implant, and that have link sound and they have issue with few things. And she slapped twice and thrice in front of me. So I said that, and she said that these people are doing so much